Hello. Hello everyone. Am I audible? Am I audible? Hello. Hello dear students. So welcome to the YouTube live session at Unacademy platform. And today our topic of discussion is the test and discussion. I will be discussing about the questions which had been asked or which will be asked in central exams like AIMS, PGI or JEPMER, right? So I have framed few questions where I will be discussing in such a manner that it will be helping you to crack questions also, and you will be having orientation about these exams also, right? Fine. So yes, hi Studios Medico, we are starting. Okay, thank you for the confirmation that I am audible to all of you. Fine, right. So first, I would like to tell you about the at Unacademy platform. I am just conducting Master Blaster special classes, right? So yesterday I have conducted GIT pathology, and before that CNS, and today is for the liver pathology, right? So you can mark all this schedule, and it's a free session. Remember, it's a free session you can attend. Right, so I will tell you attend this. Definitely it will help you in AIMS and PGI exam which is coming, and FMG exam also, right? And you can see the list of the topics which I'm going to cover. It will be very essential, and I'm telling you, you will be having lots of advantage. And once you will coming to the Unacademy platform, these older lecture also you can see in the recorded form, right? So recorded version will be there, and you can see and you can get the benefit from the lecture, right? So I welcome you all, my dear student. I'm very happy that you all came to interact with me for this shorter session of the YouTube. And I will start with my prayer that you all should have a great and grand success in every exams of life. And with this prayer, I will begin the question number 1. Right? So question number 1, you can see this is how a question will be framed in AIMS exam. Right? Whenever you will be writing AIMS exam, you will be seeing question like this. Right? So typical AIMS pattern. Right? So what is the question? What is the correct sequence of the changes in nucleus during cellular injuries, right? So we have all read about the cell injuries. So this is a basic question. It is revolving around the basic concept. So can you tell me out of these four changes, what will be the right answer, right? Can you tell me what will happen first, one by one? Out of these 4, can you tell me what will happen first? Yes, anybody? Yes, yeah, I think you all have given the right answer. So I will tell you what happens whenever a cell injury starts, right? So we all know that cell injury is reversible and irreversible, right? So we all know that cell injury is reversible and irreversible, right? So when it is reversible injury, right? So try to understand what I'm saying, that it is very important, reversible and irreversible. In case of reversible injury, nucleus will be damaged. That is the important thing we have to understand, right? So there will be nuclear damage in reversible injury, and what will be that damage? You will see there is a cell and there is a nucleus, right? There is a nucleus, and nucleus will be having chromatin, and there will be chromatin clumping. So remember, they are having chromatin damage, and chromatin will be damaged, and they will be having clumping, which is called as chromatin disaggregation. Remember, it is called as chromatin disaggregation, right? So what will happen first in a cell? Reversible injury. What you will see there? Chromatin disaggregation. Then after this reversible injury, when the ischemia or hypoxia is persistent, they will go for irreversible damage. And remember, in irreversible damage of the nuclei, there are 3 changes, right? What are those 3 changes? In this sequence, pycnosis will come first, right? And after that, there is a karyorrhexis, and the final thing will be the karyolysis, right? So this is karyolysis. So these are the orderly change in the irreversible injury, right? So that is why I said what will be the order of the change. So this is the order of the change. First will be chromatin disaggregation, followed by pycnosis, then karyorrhexis, and then karyolysis, right? So what is pycnosis, and how you will differentiate pycnosis from the nuclear damage? So here I will tell you one thing. Here I will tell you one important thing, that pycnosis, how it differs. right? I will tell you how pycnosis differs from the chromatin clumping. In pycnosis, there will be chromatin clumping. See, this is the nucleus. There will be chromatin clumping, and along with the chromatin clumping, there will be nuclear shrinkage, right? So what is pycnosis? It is chromatin clumping plus nuclear shrinkage, right? So this is called as pycnosis. So this is the ideal definition of the pycnosis, right? Chromatin clumping plus nuclear shrinkage is called as pycnosis. What is karyorhexis? Rhexis. Karyon means nucleus. Rhexis means fragmentation. So nuclear fragmentation is called as karyorhexis. Nucleus, you will see the nucleus is fragmented like this, right? After fragmentation of the nucleus, they will be removed through the cell membrane, right? So chromatin is lysed, that is called as chromatin lysis, and they will be removed from the cell. So that is called karyolysis. Chromatin lysis is karyolysis, right? So this is how a sequence of injuries in the nucleus will be going on. What I want to convey you the message which you should remember that in reversible injury also you will find nuclear damage, right? Because many of the students, they feel that reversible injury, there is no damage in the nucleus. Yes, there will be damage. And what is that damage? Chromatin disaggregation, or it is also called as chromatin clumping, right? So where you will see chromatin clumping, if examiner says reversible, irreversible, both places you will find chromatin clumping, right? So how it is pycnosis? How pycnosis differs from the chromatin clumping? There will be nuclear shrinkage. That is the point you have to remember, right? Pycnosis is the term used for the chromatin condensation plus nuclear shrinkage. That is the thing you have to remember, right? So that is the explanation for this question. So now you can see what will be the first event. First event will be the chromatin disaggregation. Second will be pycnosis, followed by karyorhexis, followed by karyolysis. So sequence will be 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So now you can see that what will be the sequence? 2, 1, 3, 4. So this B option is the right answer, right? So you got the point. So B option is the right answer. This is how they will be asking about the sequence arrangement in AIIMS exam. That is the AIIMS new pattern which examiner will be asking question, right? Now come to the next question. This is the multiple completion type of the question, where you have to choose multiple options, right? Which can be right. It can be A also, it can be ABC also, it can be all also, right? So now you can see this multiple completion type of MCQ. What are the statement examiner is asking, right? Classically activated macrophages activated by interferon gamma. Can you tell me this is right or wrong? Anybody? Can you tell me what is the answer for this? Macrophage, those are classically activated macrophage. They are activated by interferon gamma. Yes. Can you tell me what is the right answer? Is it true or false? Can you tell me? Yes, very good. Kashif, Dilpreet, they are all telling that it is a true statement. So remember, macrophage, they are classically activated. Remember, there are two types of macrophages, classical and alternatively activated macrophages. Classically activated macrophages are activated by interferon gamma. They will be activating macrophage, right? Alternatively activated macrophages are activated by interleukin 4, interleukin 6. They are activating alternatively activated macrophage. Remember, this classical and alternative we have to keep in mind. This was the NEET question also in 2016 and 17, right? We have to understand that classically activated macrophages are also called as M1 and alternatively activated macrophages are called as M2, right? Classically, which is activated by interferon gamma, they are involved in inflammation, right? That alternatively activated macrophages are associated with the wound healing and repair, right? So these are the some basic points we have to remember, right? So we can see that classically activated macrophages are activated by interferon gamma. This is the correct statement, right? Let us come to the second. So I hope you understood. I said activated macrophages are of two types. I again repeat, activated macrophages are of two types, classic, alternative. Classic is activated by interferon gamma and alternative is activated by IL-4, right? Classic is called as M1 and they are involved in inflammation, right? Alternatively activated macrophages are called as M2 and they are involved in wound healing and repair, right? So now it is clear. So first statement is the correct statement. Second statement is albumin is negative acute phase response protein. So what do you say, that it is true or false? Yes, it is also a true statement, right? Albumin is the negative acute phase response protein. Remember that acute phase response protein, here we have to remember that acute phase response proteins, they are increased or they can be decreased also in any kind of inflammation. Any kind of inflammation. It can be acute also, it can be chronic also. So do not get confused by the name acute. So acute phase response protein can be increased in or it can be decreased also, and where in both kind of inflammation, acute, chronic, both, right? When it is increased, they are called as positive acute phase response protein. When they are decreased, they are called as negative acute phase response protein. Positive acute phase response protein, remember the name ferritin, and negative, which examiner had asked in PGI, AIIMS and NEET exam, is albumin, right? So these are important point about the acute phase response protein. So remember, number one, acute phase response protein can be increased also, can be decreased also, right? It will be seen in both acute and chronic inflammation. When it is increased, called as positive ferritin. When it is decreased, called as albumin, negative, right? So now coming to the second statement is also true. Dirk granuloma is seen in cerebral malaria. True or false? Dirk's granuloma. Yes, very good. So this is also a seen in cerebral malaria. So Dirk's granuloma is a seen in malaria, cerebral malaria, which is caused by Plasmodium falciparum. So this is also a true statement, right? Stellate granuloma is seen in Het's pneumonia. Can you tell me what is this? Het's pneumonia is, remember, Het's pneumonia is caused by measles, right? Caused by measles, where you will see Warthin-Finkeldy giant cell, if you remember, right? Warthin-Finkeldy giant cells are seen in measles. That was the NEET question also, right? So Warthin-Finkeldy giant cells, when you are seeing, right, that will be the measles, and that is measles pneumonia is called as Het's pneumonia. Stellate granuloma is different thing. Stellate granuloma is different thing. I will show you in this, right? How stellate granuloma will be looking. Stellate granuloma is looking like a star shape, right? Because of the necrosis due to presence of neutrophil. So there are neutrophil, and because of the neutrophil there will be necrosis, right? So this necrosis will be star shape necrosis plus granuloma, right? So that is why it is also called as neutrophilic granuloma. That is why it is also called as neutrophilic granuloma. And neutrophilic granuloma will be seen in, it is seen in cat scratch disease, right? So remember, it is seen in cat scratch disease. So it is seen in cat scratch disease, right? Very good. So Dilpreet, Ankit, you are all, Deepa, right? So majority of you have said the correct answer. I'm very happy for that thing, that you all know and you have all read well, right? So now you can see this statement is a, so now you can see what is the stellate granuloma. It is seen in cat scratch disease, and it can be seen in lymphogranuloma venereum also. So these are the two disorders where you will see stellate granuloma. Remember, stellate granuloma was again a NEET PG question 2 times, 2016 and 18. It is seen in which condition? Cat scratch disease. So that was the answer, right? So now you can see that in this statement, the D statement is wrong statement, right? So D is wrong statement, right? So now you can see in this multiple completion type, remember these questions will be time taking in your exam, right? So what you have to do, you have to revise your notes multiple times, then only you will be very quicker. Otherwise these questions will be taking time for you, because all can be true, all can be false, or multiple things will be there. So options will be running. It is not like you are ruling out one option and you are coming to the right answer. So this, see this, these are the questions which will be only in 10 to 15 in number, right, in AIIMS exam, but they will be taking time. And to survive these questions, you should be very thorough with your theory knowledge, right, so that you can immediately pick up the right answer, right? So now you can see what are the right answer. Option A, B, C is correct. So this is option number 1, which is the correct answer, right? So option number 1 is the correct answer. Samna, you can see this video, it will be recorded, it will be available at YouTube channel, and you can run it and you can see it. Why to repeat? It will be wasting unnecessary time, right? So again, but you have asked me, so I will just tell you, Het's pneumonia is because of measles, right? Measles infection will be causing Het's pneumonia, and in Het's pneumonia caused by measles, and they will be having characteristic Warthin-Finkeldy giant cell, right? So I repeated, but here I will request you, just it is recorded, so it will be recorded and it will be available in the YouTube platform of the Unacademy. You can see it later on also. Now see this again a new kind of question I'm showing you here. It's a multiple true false type of MCQ, right? This multiple true false type of MCQ is another time taking MCQs in your exam. This will again require the concept. So what we have to remember here, keep revising your notes every day, solve MCQ also, but focus on your notes also, so that your theory should be very strong, because these questions you cannot solve only on the basis of the MCQs, right? So look at the first option. Transposons are associated with gene regulation and chromatin organization. This was the question in NEET PG 2016, right? So what are the transposons? Can you tell me what is the transposon? Transposons are also known as jumping genes, right? So transposons are, yes, very good. Transposons are jumping genes. Most welcome, Samana, for understanding. And jumping genes, remember, they are non-coding genes. Remember, they are non-coding genes, which are also called as introns, right? So non-coding introns are the transposons. Why they are called as jumping gene? Because they are continuously migrating in our human genome. Remember, they are continuously migrating in our human genome, and their basic function is chromatin organization. If you look at the nucleus, why nucleus is having granular homogeneous chromatin? So this nuclear chromatin, remember, this nuclear chromatin organization is because of the transposon. So that is a true statement, right? So first statement, what I'm showing you here, first statement is a true statement, right? So transposons are remember what is this? It's a jumping gene. It's an intron, non-coding area, and their function is to help in chromatin arrangement or chromatin organization, right? So obviously, if chromatin is organized, so they will be regulating the gene also, right? So that is the quite understandable thing, right? Now come to the second statement. What is written here? MicroRNA code for the proteins and have important regulatory functions. See this. This kind of question is a kind of a conceptual language which examiner is using, because he is writing two statements in a one statement, right? MicroRNA code for protein. This is one statement examiner is telling, right? And then they are telling that it is have important role in regulatory functions, right? So remember, coding for the protein is not done by the microRNA. MicroRNA are non-coding RNAs. Remember, they are non-coding RNAs, or you can say intronic areas. These are the introns. They will be not coding anything. And what is this? That is why they are also called as gene silencing, because they will inhibit the target gene when they will attach to them, right? So remember this point. This microRNA, what is their basic function? They will combine with the target gene and they will inhibit them. That is the function of the microRNA, right? But remember, are they regulatory? Are they having regulatory function? So this is the correct statement. They have regulatory function in our human body, right? They are regulating our human genome. But remember, they are not coding for the protein. So what we can choose here? It is half correct, half wrong, right? So overall, this is a wrong statement. Remember, this is a false statement, because microRNA, it does not code for any protein. This is not like other RNAs like rRNA, tRNA or mRNA, right? This is the different RNA which will inhibit the gene expression, and by inhibiting the gene expression, they will control some of the functions of our gene, right? So this is important to understand. This statement was having two statements, right? Half is correct, half is wrong. So overall, when we have to choose in exam, we have to choose it as a false, right? So this is a false statement. Come to the next statement. Next statement is about the long non-coding RNA can promote gene activation as well as inhibit gene, right? So this long non-coding RNA and microRNA, what is common to both of them? what is common to both of them? Both are gene silencing, right? Both are gene silencing. But long non-coding RNA has one more plus point. They are the promoter of the gene. So both function will be done by them. Promotion of the gene is seen in stabilization of the protein structure. Stabilization of protein structure is the activatory example, right? So their activatory example is the stabilization of the protein structure, and inhibitory function is shown by formation of Barr bodies, right? So this is shown by Barr bodies. So Barr bodies are formed because of the long non-coding RNA. So now you can see what is this statement. This statement is a true statement, right? So long non-coding RNA, they promote gene also, and promotion of gene is shown by stabilization of the secondary or tertiary structure of the protein. So they are stabilizing the protein structure, and inhibitory function is shown by they will inhibit exist gene, right? There is a X chromosome gene. That X chromosome will be, that gene will be affected, and because of that they will be forming the Barr bodies, right? So that is inhibitory function, right? So now you got this. This is a true statement, right? So now we can see first is the true, second is the false, third is the true, and come to the fourth one. This was the AIIMS question also, right? This is about the genome editing. Genome editing is done by clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats CRISPR-Cas9. So can you tell me this is a true or false? Genome editing means adding or replacing gene with artificial nucleases. Artificial nucleases, right? So nucleases, we all know that these are also considered as molecular scissors, right? So genome editing, yes, it is a true statement. Very good. So majority of you are telling the right answer only, right? So it is a true statement. So I'm telling you what is the genome editing process. In genome editing, what we do, either we add or we remove or replace the gene segment, right? So either we add or we remove the gene segment. For example, I will tell you what is the significance of this CRISPR-Cas9. Take example of the Huntington's disease, right? Huntington's disease, there is a CAG trinucleotide repeat, right? So it means if we remove the CAG trinucleotide, if you remove the CAG trinucleotide from the individual, this will help in treatment of this patient. That is what the genetic application says, that we can do like this. So this experiment, genome editing, is like that only. They will remove this CAG trinucleotide. So how they are going to remove this? Right? Did you understand how they are going to remove it? They are going to remove it with the help of nucleases. These are artificially prepared nucleases from the bacteria, right? From the prokaryotes. This CRISPR-Cas9, remember, this CRISPR-Cas9 was derived from the prokaryotes. This was the question in JIPMER 2017. From the prokaryotes. CRISPR-Cas9 was just first taken from the prokaryotes, not from the eukaryotes. Remember, that was the JIPMER question in 2017, right? So what are the nucleases? So as I said, nucleases, they will cut down. So who are these nucleases? Remember, there are three important nucleases we should remember. One we are seeing here, CRISPR-Cas9. Second is given in Harrison also, that is called as TALEN. And third is zinc finger nucleases, ZFN, zinc finger nucleases. So now you can see these are the nucleases, which are the molecular scissor, which will be cutting down the DNA segment and then removing them. Rest of the segment will be added by DNA ligase, right? So basically these are scissors. Whatever is required to remove or to add, that segment will be cut down by these things. So who are these three things? CRISPR-Cas9, TALEN, ZFN. Remember, it could be a future PGI question also. How they will be asking? They will be asking question like this. Genome editing is done by which of the following nucleases? Option 1, option 2, option 3. And remember, that time all three options you have to choose, right? So these are the three important nucleases which are involved in genome editing, where we cut or remove a desired or target segment of the DNA to cure a disease like a Huntington's chorea, right? So this is still under trial. It's going on, right? So we are planning, our molecular scientists are planning that this is the way we can cure these disorders, right? So this question is now solved. You know, you can see that first option was true, second was false, third was true, and fourth was true. So overall, only second option was the false option, right? So this is the important one, right? Now coming to the next question. Now this is the question which examiner will be asking in your future exam. This I have kept because I feel examiner can ask these questions in future exam. If you look at this, what is the history says? 28-year-old female, right? Sexually active female, mucopurulent vaginal discharge from past 3 weeks. Pelvic examination is cervix red around the os, but no erosions and the lesions on pap smear is prepared. So see, come to the basic thing. She is suffering from the sexually transmitted disorder, right? And because of that, the pap smear was taken, right? And figure is shown here. So this image is shown. So can you tell me what will be the right answer for this thing? Anybody? And I'm telling you, this will be the future question. And whenever this is the pap smear, remember this is the pap smear. Always remember, pap smear is a cytology smear. And for cytology smear, fixative is 95% of ethanol. Remember, this can be a future AIMS question also. And this was the question also previous year, right? So pap smear is a cytology smear, 95% of ethanol has been fixed. So answer is, oh, majority of you are thinking that it is a Trichomonas vaginalis. Okay, can you tell me what is the most common cause of the non-gonococcal urethritis in a sexually active female, right? Or in a sexually active individual. So remember here, you are seeing, if you look at this, right? If you look at this biopsy, cytology, you can notice these are some cells which I am drawing, right? This cell, can you see this is squamous cell? Can you see this is squamous cell? Can you see this is squamous cell? Right? All these is squamous cell. What you are noticing, I'm just making it. Can you see there is a prominent vacuole? There is a prominent vacuole, and these prominent vacuoles are called as glassy inclusions, right? So these are called as glassy inclusions. So pap smear, glassy inclusions, that's all. When you see this, it means diagnosis is chlamydia trachomatis. Very good, Soumya has told the right answer, right? So it is chlamydia. So remember, answer is chlamydia trachomatis. So this is the answer. Right, so now we have to remember how chlamydia you will identify. You will find glassy inclusions within the squamous epithelium of the slide. So that is what you can see in this slide. You can see there are so many glassy inclusions, right? So if you're not able to see this, now you can see here also, right? This is the cell. This is the glassy inclusion. This is the glassy inclusion. So it is chlamydia infection. Remember, this is the chlamydia infection. Glassy inclusions, right? So chlamydia infection, glassy inclusion within the epithelial cells. So that will be chlamydia diagnosis, right? Now come to the, nearly all these patients what I have written, they will be having similar features, right? They will be having similar presentation, similar case history will be there, right? So how you are going to identify Gardnerella vaginalis? How you are going to identify Gardnerella vaginalis? By seeing the clue cells. So remember, this was the image asked in AIMS 2015 and 16, right? And again, it will be asked in your exam, right? So Gardnerella vaginalis, it will be identified by clue cells, which I wanted to show you here, right? So now you can see this. What is the Gardnerella infection? So you can see what will happen in Gardnerella infection. When you are seeing a Gardnerella infection, you have to compare. See, this is the squamous cell, where you can see the squamous cell borders are neatly visible like this, right? Clear cut. But now look at this squamous cell. In this squamous cell, what you are observing? In this squamous cell, you are seeing basophilic. You are seeing basophilic stippling, right? So note like this. What I am showing you in this squamous cell, you are seeing basophilic stippling. What are these basophilic stippling? These are bacterial colonies. Remember, these are bacterial colonies. So these bacterial colonies are the forming basophilic clusters, and now they are covering entire epithelium. They are covering entire epithelium, and you cannot see the borders, right? So they are covering the entire squamous cell, and because of it, squamous cell borders are blurred, or you can see unclear. I should say unclear. right? So why it is unclear? Because of the basophilic stippling. So this basophilic stippling of the bacterial colonies is a clue. Remember, this basophilic stippling of the squamous epithelial cell is a clue, and that is why it is called as clue cells, right? So what are the clue cells? These are the squamous cells which are having basophilic stippling and hiding the squamous cell because of the bacterial colonies, right? So this is the Gardnerella vaginalis, right? This is the cause of Gardnerella vaginalis. So these colonies are the Gardnerella vaginalis, right? So I think you understood. There is a squamous cell where the squamous cell edges we cannot appreciate because of the bacterial colonies are covering them, right? And how will be the bacterial colonies? They will be blue in color, right? So that is why we are calling them as a basophilic stippling, right? So this is the Gardnerella vaginalis, right? Or bacterial vaginosis. So that is how it will be looking, which is not seen here, right? So now you understood. This will be having clue cells. Actinomycosis is the question which had been asked in AIIMS 2015 and 16, right? Actinomycosis, right? Actinomycosis, what you will see, I'm just writing here, there will be a cotton ball like structure. See, I'm just making a representative diagram. I will show you the picture also. First, you have to remember cotton balls in actinomycosis. Now I'm saying about actinomycosis. From the cotton balls, you will be seeing a sun ray like radiating filaments. So cotton ball plus sun ray like radiating filament. Sun ray like radiating filaments. So this will be seen in actinomycosis. Remember, this is another important point. 2 points you have to remember to identify actinomycosis. Number 1, they will be having cotton ball, and number 2, they will be having sun ray like radiating filament. And see, what you have to remember, it can be pink color also, like you are seeing, it can be eosinophilic and it can be basophilic. It can be blue color also, right? So it depends on the staining mixture, right? So remember, you should not get confused by seeing the pink color or seeing the thing. Basic thing you have to understand, there will be a cotton ball, and from the cotton ball there will be radiating filaments, and these radiating filaments are suggestive of actinomycosis. And what will be the characteristic history in actinomycosis? They will be having history of intrauterine device, right? So they will be having history of intrauterine device in their vagina, right? So this will be the history. Patient is coming with the IUD implantation. Now she is having she is having vaginal discharge. Pap smear is prepared, and now pap smear is looking like this. Pap smear is looking like this. Now you can see this is the pap smear of actinomycosis, right? So this is the pap smear of actinomycosis. So what we are seeing in this pap smear of actinomycosis, what I am showing you here, you can see this is the cotton ball. Can you see? This is the cotton ball, right? So this central part is cotton ball, right? And you can see these are the radiating filaments. Can you see? These are the radiating sun ray like radiating filaments. So that's what I said. These two findings, cotton ball, sun ray like radiating filament, this will confirm the diagnosis of actinomycosis, right? So this will confirm the diagnosis of actinomycosis, and characteristic history of intrauterine device will be present in this patient, right? So I think it's clear to everybody, right? So it's clear to everyone. So this is the pap smear. See what I have shown you here. This is the pap smear. This was the question in AIIMS November 2015, and see in 2016 May, this was the question. This is the HE section, histopathology. Now this is the tissue biopsy histopathology, right? In this, what we are seeing, again you can see there are so much of inflammation. These are the inflammatory infiltrate. What you are seeing here, these are the inflammation, right? Inflammation. And now you can see there is a cotton ball. This is the eosinophilic. You are seeing now eosinophilic. See, in cytology it was basophilic. Now you are seeing there is a eosinophilic cotton ball, right? Eosinophilic cotton ball, and you can see, you can notice here the red color areas. You can see these are the red color radiating areas. So this is the radiating sun ray like radiating filament. So sun ray like radiating filament, cotton ball, sun ray like radiating filament. This is again diagnostic of actinomycosis, right? So now you can understand. This is how you will identify. Remember, these were the two questions. Both had been asked in AIIMS exam. So IUD history, and when you are seeing pap smear or histological examination, where you are seeing a cotton ball and sun ray like radiating from radiations are seen from that areas, it means you are looking at the actinomycosis, right? So that is how you can rule out actinomycosis for this particular question, right? Now come to the fourth option. How you are going to identify Trichomonas vaginalis? Trichomonas vaginalis, remember 2 points you have to remember. They will be pear shaped. Number 1, pear shaped organism. Pear shaped organism, and their nucleus will be elongated like this. Nucleus will be elongated. So pear shaped organism plus elongated nuclei. Plus elongated nucleus. So this point is helping in diagnosis. Remember, here you will not see the flagella. When you are seeing this cytological specimen, whatever you read in microbiology, they are flagellated. This will not be seen, right? So that is why I said whenever you are seeing a cytology of the Trichomonas, vaginalis, 2 things you have to observe. Number 1, pear-shaped organism and their elongated nuclei. That's all. Done. Diagnosis is done. You can see here. Now you can see this is the Trichomonas. Right, this is the Trichomonas infection. What we are seeing in this, you have to focus on these 2 cells, right? Can you see how are the appearance? It is a pear shape, right? It is pear shape. And how is the nucleus here? So you can see nucleus is the elongated, right? So elongated nucleus. So that is why I said pear shape organism plus elongated nuclei. Elongated nuclei. So that will confirm. You can see a very closer view here. In this satellite, you can see there is a flagella also. You can see flagella here also, right? But remember, you in exam you will not be able to identify. See, you can see here elongated nucleus and pear-shaped organism. That's all, Trichomonas vaginalis. That is how you will solve this kind of MCQ, right? Now, coming to the next question. This was the another neat question where you will be seeing, yes, Dilpreet, there will be a greenish thin discharge will be there, that will be fishy smell, right? All those things are there, but that is not a very specific for the diagnosis. When you are seeing the pap smear, that will be the final thing where we can confirm the diagnosis of this simple inflammation of the cervix and vaginas, right? Now we are seeing a 45-year-old male. He is working in asbestos factory, right? Presented with the lung mass. And this ultrastructural examination means electron microscopy is shown here. So can you tell me what will be the most likely diagnosis here? See, examiner is writing about the asbestosis history, right? Asbestosis, which cancer is most common? Can you tell me what is the most common cancer and what is the most specific cancer? What is most common? What is the most common cancer? Yes, most common cancer with asbestosis is bronchogenic lung cancer. Which bronchogenic lung cancer? Adenocarcinoma is most common. And most specific is the mesothelioma. Right? Most specific is the mesothelioma. Right? Here, bronchogenic carcinoma, why it is more common? Because of the incubation period is very short, 15 to 20 years. Whereas mesothelioma incubation period is 25 to 45 years. So that is why mesothelioma is very rare. Right? Even though they are specific, but they will be rare. So now the question is, what should be the answer here? Because examiner is not giving the history, duration is not provided, right? So what is provided here is the electron microscopy. So can you tell me, what is this electron microscopy says? Microvilli branching, very good. So what we are seeing here, see, whenever we are seeing this kind of microscopy, right, how you will identify branching? Right, this is I'll tell you what is the answer for this question. This is the case of mesothelioma. Right, why? Because in case of adenocarcinoma, you will be seeing the short non-branching microvilli. So remember, this was the PGI question. Short non-branching microvilli will be seen in adenocarcinoma, right? So adenocarcinoma, you will be having short non-branching microvilli. And mesothelioma, you will be having long and branching microvilli, right? So you will be seeing the long and branching microvilli in this one, right? It is not a squamous cell cancer and it is not the atypical carcinoid. They will not looking like this, right? So what I want to say here, how you will identify this, right? So now you can see how you will identify this. Where is the branching? Probably you are not able to make the branching. See, I will show you. Why? What is the confusion in exam? This was the question in NEET PG exam. You can see this much is the basement membrane. right? This much is the basement membrane, and these are non-branching microvilli. Non-branching microvilli. There is no branching, and they are small also. So small non-branching microvilli. So what is your diagnosis? Adenocarcinoma, right? So this is adenocarcinoma. But when we are seeing this picture, right, in this what we are seeing, see, there is a long microvilli, but where is the branching, right? So remember, these round structures are the branching. So all these round structures are the branching, because these are the cut section. We are not able to see. Look at my fingers, right? If I'm visible, right? Now look at this one. If my fingers are visible like this, right? I think it is coming, right? It's like this. It's like this, right? And these are the branching. Can you see? These are the branching, right? These are the branching, right? So when you take the section in a vertical alignment, then what you will see, the microvilli, which is like this, which is like my fingers, they will be looking like this, right? They will be looking like this fingers, right? And the branches, you will be seeing tips like this. Now you can see this is the tips. So these round tips will be like branches. So these branches are round tips. Remember, branches are round structure because they are cut section. So now you can see these are the branches. These are the branches which you will be seeing here, right? So this will be feature of mesothelioma. So answer is mesothelioma. So always remember, asbestosis, most common cancer is adenocarcinoma. But the electron microscopy which examiner had shown here, they are showing branching and they are having long microvilli. So this will be the case of mesothelioma, right? Now come to the last question. This question can be another important MCQ in future exam, and this diagram was AIIMS 2016 question, right? So what is this? Now you can see this baby is having anencephaly. This baby is having anencephaly, and if you see, their midline structure is affected. This is the midline structure. Eyes are not well developed, nose is not there, mouth is ill developed, right? So all these things are seen here, right? Now you can see what is the history. A baby was born to a mother who was having diabetes. That is the number one catch point. With following facial dysmorphology. See, what is the facial morphology? As I said, there is midline structure which is affected. Midline structure which is affected, right? So midline structures are affected, and you can see only one eye, nose are absent, and mouth is also very small and ill developed, right? So which of the following is the most likely cause of this congenital birth defect? And see, there is a gross specimen of this. When autopsy was done from this dead born baby, this is the gross specimen. So what is this syndrome? What is this association? So remember, maternal diabetes and trisomy 13, they are associated with this characteristic syndrome which we are seeing here. This is the feature. This baby is having cyclopia, and his brain is having holoprosencephaly. Right? So this is the cyclopia plus holoprosencephaly, and they are associated with trisomy 13. Right? So answer is trisomy 13. Right? So this question will be asked to you in exam. See what I have shown you. I will just repeat here. Okay, what is happening here? Right? Can you see this baby? Midline structure is affected. Right? Why midline structure is affected? Which gene is mutant? That can be the future question. It is sonic hedgehog gene mutation. Remember, it is sonic hedgehog gene mutation, which is the reason, right? Sonic hedgehog gene mutation. I will write the full form. Sonic hedgehog gene mutation. So SHH. Very important, and examiner they ask question. Sonic hedgehog gene mutation is responsible. Remember, sonic hedgehog gene is normally a morphogenetic gene. Remember, normal SHH gene is a gene which are involved in morphogenesis and embryogenesis. Right? What they control? They control midline structure. They control midline structure of which area? Face, brain, and head area. Sorry, neck area, right? So in simple word, head, face, and neck, all these midline structures are controlled by sonic hedgehog gene. But when they are having mutation, then you will see this kind of deformity where you will see the cyclopia on the external examination. So you can see this is the external examination of the baby. right? So why this is happening? Because of Sonic Hedgehog gene mutation, right? So when you will see the autopsy, Sonic Hedgehog gene, as I told you, Sonic Hedgehog gene, as I told you, they will be controlling the midline structure. So now you can see this is the right cerebral hemisphere and this is the left cerebral hemisphere. Normally what we see that there is a right and left cerebral hemisphere will be clearly demarcated, right? In our forebrain you will see they are clearly demarcated, but because of the Sonic Hedgehog gene mutation, now right left are fused together, right? So now there is right left are fused together. So this condition is called as holoprosencephaly. Forebrain is one segment. Prosen means forebrain. Holoprosencephaly, right? So holoprosencephaly is also associated with Sonic Hedgehog gene mutation, right? So what I have shown you, this is the congenital malformation in a pediatric patient where we are seeing Sonic Hedgehog gene mutation, and because of the mutation now you can see there is a single unit of the forebrain. There is no division, right? So there is a single unit of the forebrain, and because of that, if you look at the ventricle, can you see this? This is the ventricle. This is the ventricle. Usually you will be having right and left ventricle, but now it is having only one ventricle. This is called as monoventricular cavity. So brain is having characteristic monoventricular cavity, right? So this is monoventricular cavity which we are seeing here, right? So Sonic Hedgehog gene mutation is causing midline defect. Because of that, right and left cerebral hemisphere is remain fused, and this is called as holoprosencephaly, right? Why I wanted to discuss this Sonic Hedgehog gene, because you can understand a future question from here. Remember, this was the question: Sonic Hedgehog gene mutation can give rise to which cancer? This was the question in previous year NEET PG exam, right? So which cancer you will see because of the SHH gene mutation? One is skin cancer known as basal cell carcinoma, right? And second, the future question which examiner can ask is the medulloblastoma. So in brain tumor, medulloblastoma, skin tumor, basal cell carcinoma, and congenital malformation, cyclopia and holoprosencephaly, right? So these were the important things which I wanted to discuss today, right? So now I have told you how the questions will be asked, how you have to anticipate, and many of the things of the earlier questions also we have discussed, right? So if you have any doubt, you can ask me in the comment section. Okay, so I think everything is clear to all. Thank you so much for coming and joining us at Unacademy platform. And again, I will remind you all that this is the special classes which is going on at Unacademy special classes platform. You can join here and you can attend my sessions. What these 2 sessions have already completed, but don't worry, it is already there. It is recorded and you can see, you can take out the PDF, you can study, and you should go with this thing. I'm telling you, you will be getting some question from here in AIIMS, PGI and FMG exam. So it will be equally useful for all exams. It is not only for AIIMS. It's AIIMS, PGI, FMG exams are now, it is very tough, right? So it will be helpful to all of you. Right, thank you so much, Harshita and Polysis Longus. This kind of name is difficult to pronunciate. Okay, Jack and Hire, thank you so much. Most welcome you all are. How can we get your all classes? You can get my all classes at Unacademy platform. Ashish and Madhu Nisha Sargam, most welcome. Deepa, thank you so much. Thank you so much to all for this kind of interaction and love. And I just sign off from here. Best wishes to all of you. Meet you soon again.